down. We know that in itself is a pro-inflammatory state, so you want to try and avoid that. So by having good fibre in the diet, and you want to have things like resistant starch, you want to be having, it's good to even add a little bit of like psyllium husk, or if that's the kind of thing you like. But the point being that you want your food to be digested slowly, and that there are certain fibres that actually improve the gut microbiome activity as well. That's without going into too many details at the moment. So that's we touched on sugar, we touched on fibre. You want to avoid things like processed meats. You want to have meat. If you have a meat, it's fine, but it shouldn't be all the time every day. It should be maybe a couple of times a week, and you don't want to be having processed meat. You want to have actually sort of fresh meat, as it were, cooked. This is some of the side of prevention. There are other aspects to it, like everything, and you can generalize a lot of things that can actually improve our resilience and health in a number of ways. So obviously good sleep, regular exercise, and I'll even go as far as saying good relationships, because that's actually also very important for our immune system, which is important in the development of cancers in the first place. So I think that's, without going into too much detail, that's the kind of prevention. Now, if you'll allow me, I'll tell you about a couple of cases which are really interesting. One of whom I saw, this was a few years ago, and I'm going to obviously explore any identifying details, but this was a gentleman, let's say in his late 50s, who came because he had a health screen, and they found that his PSA, his prostate-specific antigen, which is a potential marker of cancer in the prostate gland, was actually high on a routine checkup, and he came from abroad, and he was working locally when I first saw him, and he'd come with this result, and I confirmed the result, it was high, and did some further tests and found out that he actually did have a cancer of the prostate. And he actually had, on one side he had a couple of tumours, on the other side he had a few tumours. So the prostate gland has got two lobes, and it's got a split down the middle, and he actually had quite a few different tumours, let's say, in the prostate, and it was confined to the prostate. It was considered a moderate risk. So it was not a highly invasive cancer, but it was potentially invasive, and it had been caught at a reasonable stage when it still seemed to be confined to the prostate gland. So he'd had a PET scan, it was checked, there wasn't any other sign of this elsewhere in the body. And I sent him to a specialist, a urologist, who they did a specific type of MRI, it's called a fusion MRI, and they took a biopsy, and they decided at the time, in conjunction with him, in collaboration with him, to only treat the two tumours on one side of the prostate. And for the others, because they seemed a bit smaller, they said let's leave it for now. And the way they treated them was with a local treatment called cryotherapy. Now, cryotherapy means putting in a needle into the actual into the tumours under an MRI guidance, and then actually freezing the tumours. So he had this done, and before he even had this done, after I got the initial result, I said to him, look, there's a few other things with you that we really need to address here. He was overweight, he was not living, let's say, the healthiest lifestyle, he wasn't eating the healthiest food, he wasn't doing exercise, he had a very busy job. And I said to him, whatever comes out of the side of the cancer diagnosis and the treatment, these are things that you need to optimize to improve your general health and to improve your chances of getting through this cancer in the best possible way, including the treatment. And so we put him on a specific, again, it was very good, you have to work with someone who's going to work with you. Not everyone will do this. But he started doing exercise, he started sleeping better, he started losing weight, he adjusted his diet completely. I told him to take a particular supplement that's actually got a large base of evidence for prostate cancer in particular, which is called lycopene, and it's you find that in tomatoes. So he started doing all of those things. He actually lost a good 7 or 8 kilos. He became a lot fitter. He felt better, his glucose came down, his insulin also came down with it. So these are all the things that I was talking about Now, the really interesting thing about this chap was that after we did all this, and we had the cryoablation, so putting the needles in and freezing the tumours, what was the next step was a few months later was to repeat the MRI to see what the situation was with everything. Now, his PSA, the marker of the cancer, had come down dramatically. What was really amazing was that when we did the MRI, the tumours, the two tumours that were treated on one side of the prostate, they were gone. Now, that was a good result, but it was also an expected result. What was completely unexpected was that on the other side, all the other tumours had disappeared completely.
There's no question about the initial diagnosis. It definitely targeted.
It was a definite prostate cancer. And there's actually a name to this effect, and it's called the abscopal effect. And I believe it was discovered by a British scientist in the 1950s. Now, there's about, as far as I know from the literature, less than 50 cases worldwide documented of such a thing happening. Now, what's the relevance to what we're talking about here? I can't say for sure that I'll tell you about what's called the abscopal effect in a moment, but the question is also what did the metabolic changes that we put this chap through, did they have a contribution to this? So the abscopal effect is something incredibly rare, but it is documented going back at least sort of 70, 80 years, whereby you treat a tumour in one place and without treating it elsewhere, so you didn't have any chemotherapy, radiotherapy or whatnot, the other tumours disappeared. So the theory behind it is that basically by treating the tumour in one place, you're exposing the tumour antigens, the parts that the immune system can see, and it becomes like a danger signal, kind of like, okay, now I've been exposed, you can recognise me, this is the kind of cancer that I am. And in some people, in certain situations, the immune system takes that almost like a vaccine and then starts attacking other parts of the tumour elsewhere. And that's probably, that is what seems to have happened. Then the other question comes out, in view of the fact that it's something so rare, this particular the abscopal effect, was the metabolic part of the treatment also something that increased the chances of that happening? Now, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do, and it's very, very difficult to prove it. But I do think that it's very likely that in him specifically, with all the other things that we've done, they created, let's say, the optimal milieu, the optimal environment, conditions, surrounding conditions for this particular thing to happen. And so he was, as I said, treated on one side and the other side disappeared. That's one case. And I'll tell you about another case now. This is not someone who I know personally, but I've seen a lot of patients over the years whom specific types of metabolic optimization actually resulted in an improvement in their cancer. I'll tell you a couple of things. One, if anyone on the channel wants to read, there's a doctor who now passed away, unfortunately, but he had a brain tumour, I think it was glioblastoma, I'm not sure, and he was told basically he was something like a year to live. His name was David Servan Tribe. He wrote a book called Anti-Cancer, which I would recommend anyone to read. And he basically didn't want to accept this, and he himself was a medical doctor. And he decided to do everything possible within reason to treat the cancer beyond what was the cancer itself. So, in other words, optimize his own metabolic health. And how did he do it? He basically did it mainly with food. He did it with sleep. He did it with exercise. He did it with meditation, positive relationships, and things like that. And he survived 20 years. Wow. So in someone who was told that you've got a year, maybe 2 years to live, it's a really remarkable story.
I mean, we've seen patients with glioblastoma dying in months or certainly a year.
And usually a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know. And I think it was glioblastoma, but the point was that the prognostication is that it was going to be, very, very short and also surviving. And now I'm going to tell you another story. This one is more of a case. This was it's been interesting for years, and I've spoken to other doctors who experience this kind of results, let's say. Patients now, pancreatic cancer, for example, pancreatic cancer is known to be absolutely horrific. Most people with it will, if without treatment, will die within months. And even with treatment, something like 95% of people who receive treatment will actually die quicker with the treatment than if they just leave it the cancer alone. And the reason being that it's such a high risk, aggressive problem that their chances are so small. People are willing to take the risk, and they take the risk. They get treated with chemotherapy, and about 5% of them will have a good result, and they might last a few more years.
How do you starve a tumor?
Sooner than get the cancer alone.
More alkaline, it's really hard for cancer to grow in an alkaline system. It'll flourish in an acidic.
Give someone a chance to actually do it. If someone is willing to take that risk, then that's the usual outcome. So there's a doctor in the United States who had a few cases, people not just with pancreatic cancer, also with liver tumours and lymphomas, I believe. And he treated them with something that I've spoken about with you in the past. I think alpha-lipoic acid, low-dose naltrexone, and vitamin C, depending on the type of tumour. And there's very sound biological reasoning to this. So tumours cancerous tumours usually have what's they go to a more anaerobic type of metabolism. So the metabolism that needs less oxygen. And what taking our alpha-lipoic acid does is it pushes their metabolism towards a more what's called oxidative phosphorylation. So it starts moving away from anaerobic more towards aerobic metabolism. And then taking something like LDN, low-dose naltrexone, that causes the body to produce its own endogenous, its own internal opioid, so basically heroin inside your own body, or morphine, whichever you want to look at it. And that has certain effects on the tumour environment, and it can actually then cause apoptosis, so it can cause cell death to those tumours. So he has, for example, a case that I read about where, and I spoke to him in person, more than once, where he had a patient with pancreatic cancer who was alive and well.
Kind of like the bacteria, feed off the sugar and starve them.
And this person,
I mean, I'm going to completely eliminate it, maybe for a period of time, depending on how severe your symptoms are. And also moderation, keeping about it.
the cancer.
Being aware of when you might be more exposed to getting an infection, how to treat it. Of course, thank goodness, the doctors are close by, so you need an antibiotic. You get a lot of them online now. I know.
Now that is a very real thing, and it's proven by multiple studies over many years now, and that's been the main thesis, let's say, for how to approach cancer. So that's looking at the actual tumour. The problem is that there's probably more to the story, and there is more to the story, but it depends on the tumour, what the actual environment of the tumour is in. So we know that some cancers are more sensitive to metabolic changes than others. So we're talking now about with fast prevention, we're in the realms of treatment. Breast cancer, colorectal cancer, so the large colon erection, pancreatic cancer, and I think also prostate cancer. These cancers are known to be more sensitive to metabolic manipulations, let's say. So there are things that you can do that can actually push these cancers into a more dormant state. Now that could mean, in some cases, actually completely regressing the cancer, but more likely it could mean just making the cancer more indolent, so it's not as aggressive.
I hear people say that all the time. I'm in remission.
You have other options to you. And I think that the focus in medicine is obviously correct.
It has vanilla in it.
But there are other things that we don't really look at because these things, it's not easy to, first of all, it's a paradigm shift in the way we think about cancers. And on the other hand, it's also something that it's very hard to get the monitored trial going. Okay, so, when you've got things that
I finished my belt now. I'm
the only way, I guess, to bring you into a trial is
I like making those.
something
You
else
just
that you're already doing, which makes the
yeah,
trial a
about
little bit less
2
pure.
feet
But I
in
think
width,
that
and
may
then
be the way forward that we can actually start bringing in other metabolic changes at the same time as
sometimes people
using
hold
the
their
regulatory
converters
and I think that there is some movement in that direction now in medicine. There are other types of cancers, such as acute myeloid leukemia, things lymphomas as well, which are cancers of the blood system, the bone marrow, the production of blood cells. And there is some evidence in some cases that, for example, high dose vitamin C, given usually intravenously, can actually, vitamin C works slightly differently. It causes the body to become more pro-oxidant, meaning that it's causing the production of more reactive oxygen species, which in turn results in the other cells in the immune system basically responding and attacking that cancer in specific cases. These are the range of subjects that we're talking about. There's more as well. I can't go into every detail, obviously. The point being,
a lot of people use peroxide in
cancer not just in isolation as,
injections.
one might think of, I've got cancer, a really cancerous tumor inside me.
You can't.
You have to start thinking, hold on a second, what else can I do in addition to whatever else may or may not be right, or whether I want to do other treatments that can actually optimize the chances of this tumor regressing or being in a better state for treatment. I think I'll let you talk a little bit.
That's fantastic, Michael. I think this is part of the problem. People know about all these not alternative, but additional treatments. But they're not quite sure which is which. I mean, it strikes me there that breast, colon, pancreas and prostatic are all glandular tumours or adenomas. So maybe that's the classification, whereas the acute myeloid leukemia are more bone marrow related. And most doctors simply don't know in terms of these additional treatments that can transform it.
I know many think that it's a breakthrough and people cry and then develop money off of this information. A lot of it falls for that stuff.
Particular cancer types.
I think it's possible to develop a safe algorithm about low-risk treatments. I think it needs to be realistic in terms of what the expectations are. There's a researcher Dr. Professor Thomas Safety in Boston University in America, and for at least 20 years now he's been doing really remarkable work on the mechanisms, and they have done trials with glioblastoma, etching, but I don't think you can generalize it to the cancers. But the problem is that tumours are not necessarily made of one cell type that is more phosphorylation or anaerobic. So the problem is that you can't just say, okay, I'm going to do this treatment, this metabolic treatment, and you may have some anecdotes for some people who really, really well. But there'll be others that they won't do so well, and that's simply because you've got different types of metabolism happening within the same tumour. Maybe some tumours are more prone to having one type of metabolism, but then when the tumour starts metastasizing, when it starts coming, let's say, out of its original position and moving off the body, the metastases themselves can also have different types of metabolism. But the safety talks very much about ketogenic therapy, so by reducing, so we were talking before about insulin resistance and glucose, and eating the right types of diet for prevention. So in terms of treatment, ketosis, which is when a person basically almost completely stops using sugar, glucose, necessarily run so well on ketone. But again, it's a nuanced subject of tumours that will run on ketones. It's not a straightforward thing. And there are other cancers that also run on glutamine, and glutamine, so Dr. Safety basically said, well, we can start using a drug which blocks glutamine. And that theory can also, that can work in practice, but there can be significant side effects of those treatments as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a nuanced subject, but what I would like to, I think that a very, very important message of all of this is that people need to understand that they're not passive in all of this. It's not I've got a diagnosis of cancer and there's nothing I can do. There are, first of all, there are definitely plenty of things you can do to prevent yourself getting cancer. Something like 1 in 3 people will get cancer at some stage in their life, if not more than that. And many of those cancers, by the way, for example, prostate cancer, if you live long enough, all men will have prostate cancer. Inevitable. Yeah, they just don't know if it's symptoms, and it never causes any problem. It just happens when they're 95 years old or something, or 80 years old, but they just, they're not sure if you won't treat it, just keep an eye on it and see what's going on with it. The point being that we all have a propensity toward cancer to different degrees, and we may all have tumours that are growing within us, and our body's immune system deals with it all the time. So the empowering part of this is how we get people to improve, to optimise their own, let's call it the soil in the garden, so that they can actually combat cancers in their early stages or at later stages if they actually develop into tumours. But there are things that can be done that are not too medical, let's say. They don't involve expensive drugs, they don't involve expensive treatments or high risks. But it is something that it's a developing field, and I really think that it's obviously a very important part of the future for cancer prevention and treatment.
I mean, it seems with traditional treatments like chemotherapy and cytotoxic agents, we're prepared to accept absolutely appalling levels of side effects. The idea that things are safe. I mean, cytotoxics certainly aren't safe. I mean, obviously it's got to do with what the consultant prescribes, but people die on chemotherapeutic agents without wishing to alarm us about it, and the side effects are totally appalling. And yet when we talk about these alternative things like low-dose naltrexone and vitamin C, they're remarkably safe treatments. And yet in the medical establishment there seems to be this great resistance to it. People kind of say, well, where's the randomised double-blind control trials on that? Well, the randomised double-blind control trials on these often highly toxic treatments are done by very expensive clinical trials run by very swish pharmaceutical companies who tend to make a lot of money. And the other thing the pharmaceutical industry does, they tend to get a treatment that's fit for lung cancer. So there's probably a couple of hundred, I don't know what nutrition figures, a couple of hundred different types of cancer. So you want a treatment for cancer A, a treatment for cancer B, a treatment for cancer C, a treatment for cancer D. Whereas these things basically, we think of things like Professor Dalgliesh, who's basically developed a bacterial inoculation.
Yeah.
But that upgrades the entire T-cell response.
He's actually, I've followed him for a while. I think I was in touch with him a long time ago as well. So he's used low-dose naltrexone.
Very much so. He brings up the paper on it. And low-dose naltrexone, even with conventional chemotherapy, can actually half the required dose. And it's a half the required dose to be back near all the side effects.
But this is exactly the point. Even this week I've got a patient at the moment with melanoma that has spread into bones in one of their arms, and is receiving a biological weapon, receiving immunotherapy. So he's really using a standard, a very advanced treatment for it. And in discussion with her oncology team, I've been giving her intravenous vitamin C. And that doesn't make anything better, but it's made her much more resilient to treatment. She's much more able to cope with the treatment, not having fatigue, able to cope, not having side effects so much of the treatment. So it's not an all or nothing thing. from a therapy level, biological therapy, CAR T, there's all sorts of stuff that's going to be happening more in the future. But in response to what you're saying, I think that's the paradigm shift where medicine, it's just a little bit shocking when you come to medical school. It's very hard to go to medical school for years, and you learn certain things and these become the foundational understanding of any particular branch within medicine. And then someone comes along and says, well, actually, vitamin C could work. And it almost sounds ridiculous. Even to doctors, maybe especially to doctors, because there is some cognitive bias that we develop because we think that can't be right. And nobody's looking at the very, very basic biology. I can give you loads of examples of this, and not just on inside of cancer. Hopefully we'll talk about it in future changes. I think that that's just the first step. And then there's the other barriers to doing that, which is how do you arrange these trials to take place, and even convincing patients. I can tell you, I've got patients who try to take medicine who's thinking about this and that, not necessarily related to cancer, and even though they know that the long-term working relationship together, they trust me and everything, and they can be resistant to trying things that nobody really knows for sure, even though they're very, very safe options. Something like vitamin C, whatever it's like. So the system's not entirely there yet, but I do think that with time these things will become more and more common.
And I think things that aren't going to do any harm, it's all about risk-benefit analysis to me. If something's not going to do any harm, then why the heck not try?
For sure. And I think that even on the subject of harm, to give the other side of the equation, there will be those who say, well, we actually don't know if this is safe. It could be, there are certain cases where they think, for example, vitamin C could push a tumour to becoming more aggressive. So the question, and so they're only now starting to understand the mechanisms by which these additional therapies can actually help or potentially harm. And there are specific mutations, for example, in colon cancer, whereby they know that if you've got this specific mutation, vitamin C will actually likely help. But this is
Help the condition or help the cancer?
help the condition.
Yeah. With the therapeutic, yes. Fascinating. I mean, I don't think our pharmacy even stocks intravenous vitamin C. We have like a combination of vitamin C and vitamin B that we give to alcoholics and people with burnings and things like that.
Usually it's made up in compound pharmacy, so I use a pharmacy where I'm in contact with them and say, listen, I need you to make up either vitamin C or other put together.
And it probably kills virus. It's probably one of the best treatments for sepsis. It's not used as well. They feel it's most viruses.
It has vaccine. It definitely has antibacterial, antiviral properties. There was a trial done in an intensive care unit a few years back, about 5 years ago, but they didn't at the end of the day find a great benefit out of it. I think that they're not sure.
Corey actually calls that his book on the war on ivermectin. And Peter Corey, in South African doctor called the works in the States, his name escapes me. They wrote it out, and very, according to Pierre's book, they got very positive results. But shall we say, the results that appeared in the paper were exactly the same as the results they got out of their side. Very possible. Treating sepsis, sepsis still has a very all infections, of course, as antibiotics become probably more problematic. If you get an infection, the GP can give you an injection of intravenous vitamin C and it goes away. That would be desirable if that's the case. For sure. At the moment, I think
make sure that the person doesn't have something called G6PD deficiency.
Yes.
If they do, then you have to be very careful with giving vitamin C. It's not that it's that common, but there are certain populations which have it. And so
Often Mediterranean associated
it is, yes. You just need to be careful about that. Assuming they don't have that deficiency, then you may start them on a dose of something like 20 grams, which sounds like a lot, but when you're getting it as an intravenous infusion, it's not that much. And you can go as high as 70, 75 grams, and even 2 or 3 times a week. Again, it's done carefully.
It is an infusion over an hour or something.
Yes, usually over about an hour. It can be very quick, it can be slower. And very important that people eat something at that time. It has a tendency to drop their sugar levels a bit. Let me tell you another little story. It's an amazing story, so a bit of a tragic story. I won't go into too many of the details because this video will get flagged as something else. But I can tell you about a case that I saw when I actually went to visit a clinic in South Africa about 5 years ago. And I was sitting with the doctor, and there was a patient, she was in the 60s. She had metastatic breast cancer, so breast cancer would spread into her bones, into her liver, and even into her gut, which is really, really rare. But the point about the gut is that because of that, she was actually barely able to eat. And she had everything. She had her mastectomy, she had both breasts removed through surgery, she had radiotherapy, she had chemotherapy, and they just weren't getting on top of this treatment. Eventually they came, and she couldn't eat, so they left a line in her chest here, which was basically going a port that goes into the central veins, so they could easily give her intravenous fluids or medications or whatever. And at that point they said, look, this is not working, and there's nothing else we can do for you, and we're just going to give you painkillers, morphine, and you need to go and get your affairs in order and say goodbye to your family. And she went to see this doctor who was actually a GP, and he gave her intravenous vitamin C and something else. I'm not going to go into nothing dangerous, but he gave her intravenous vitamin C 3 times a week. And it's not just vitamin C, it's very important I emphasize that. Otherwise people will start thinking that they can do this. And the market
I'm going to give us a clue for the other one.
I shouldn't, because it would be flagged. In my opinion, it's not something dangerous, but it needs to be done carefully and properly, and most people don't do these kinds of things. It's not arsenic poisoning or anything like that. And this woman's cancer started progressing, and she was able to eat again, and she was in less pain, and there was a significant regression of her cancer, and she didn't survive. She lived, I think, another at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. But she was supposed to, according to the rate that she was deteriorating, she couldn't eat.
You're talking days.
Not days, but definitely weeks, maybe 2 months, 3 months or something like this. And she went on for another year and a half or so. And the sad thing is, you wonder what would have happened had this been instituted much earlier, with or without the other treatments. And so this again, it's a case of, I can tell you, I've got long lists of patients that I'm aware of, people who I've seen, people who I've spoken to other doctors around the world, where different, a little bit of thinking outside of the usual has made a significant difference to their cancer survival.
It's interesting you're talking there about low-dose naltrexone increasing morphine metabolism. There's this old saying in healthcare that sometimes when we start patients on terminal morphine, we thrive on it. And then we just seem to, I've always found it too because the doctor was a pain, so we go back, start cooking again, start doing the cooking again. going to advantage for it.
I'm sure it's more than that, you're right.
Yeah, there could actually be some therapeutic effect of it.
There could be. I mean, with low dose corticosteroid, the mechanism is slightly different because you're purposefully giving them, yes, and obviously, no, I get what you're saying.
Systems
There is some
overloaded and
causes
a lot of
Right, that's the way it was originally used for heroin addiction, of course. That's
correct. And then it was when somebody very smart in the 1980s, when the AIDS epidemic started in New York, a doctor called Bernard Bahari started playing with it because he'd already used it in very low doses for other conditions, and he started playing with it, and they only had one drug at the time for AIDS, and that was AZT. And he started adding it into people's therapy in tiny doses of naltrexone. And at the time, I don't know how long this followed at the time, but these people many of them were surviving much, much longer than anyone expected. They didn't have any real treatment. And that's how it started. Since then it's developed, and
And again, low dose naltrexone basically isn't available from British pharmacists. It's preposterous. Professor Dalgie's got a particular pharmacist up in Edinburgh or Glasgow.
I remember it was
Yeah, but for something that's safe then. And apart from if it's safe, why not try it? You've got the whole right to try thing. If someone's got a terminal condition and they want to try, I don't know, Artemisia annua or something, from Italy, then there's massive world for them. I mean, this plant won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for treating malaria, so...
Yeah, well, also that sounds like a lot of luck because many people are either scared to or not listen to the doctors. People around them will freak out, oh my god, they're going to die, they're listening to it, they're going to make you eat maggots or grass.
The story of Daniel, who refused to eat the king's food and ate simple foods, and at the end of the trial period were more healthy looking than all the other young men who'd eaten the king's rich foods and the king's wine, of course. We don't want to drink too much of that stuff either. Big question left in my mind, Michael. Vitamin D as a preventative and a treatment.
So, let's put it this way, I wouldn't put lots and lots of weight on telling you, hey, if you do this, you're not going to get cancer or something, dramatic, but I think there is a significant body of evidence that having good levels of vitamin D always throughout your life is important. And it definitely seems to improve cancer rates in certain cancers. I can't remember the literature right now, so I'm not going to say clinical, but I definitely read about it, and has improved survivability as well. And prostate cancer is another recent cancer. And that's one of the things that I gave this chap as well, was to get his levels up to a much higher level than they were.
And again, things that are good for prostate cancer, given it's a glandular type thing, again you think breast, colon, pancreas, all glandular type. Yes, type 2 is what we call potential adenomas. So, it kind of makes sense.
Well, as you say, it's very much about benefit versus, risk versus benefit. And again, these are low-risk strategies with potential benefit. The question is really about identifying who's going to benefit.
This is the key thing. We need to know which particular additional low-risk treatments for what particular cancer this is.
That would be helpful. That's the risk and will emerge in time more and more.
I mean, I think the anecdotal experience in terms of practitioners such as yourself is absolutely wonderful. When you list from the Canadian Institute, the idea that you need to do an expensive randomized double-blind controlled trial for all our interventions is playing right up to the big farmers' backyard.
I think without being conspiratorial, let's say, I think there are certain economic motivations and laziness, right? There's a certain laziness in thinking. It hasn't really and one thing. And then you've got to change something you're doing. It's like, well, what's going to make me change my practice, right? I'm so busy, I've got so many things to read. Now you've got to tell me there's this other thing that I can do and you haven't got any real food for it. You can see how a mindset develops which is not conducive to what true science should be. Now, what from my point of view, I came into medicine very haphazardly. I came in literally, I didn't even know that I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor. I had no inkling to be a doctor in my life. And a friend of mine when I was 16 said to me, why don't you come to us? I said, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know. He said, come to medical school, go right down for a walk in the park. And I said to him, well, what if I don't like it? He said, well, you can leave. I said, what do I do then? And he said, well, pretty much anything. So it's a very good first degree to have. And I was, totally, I just believed in enjoying whatever I did, no matter what I did. So I want to enjoy whatever I did. And I actually loved medical school, but even when I finished medical school, I was going to be a doctor. It's done with now. And I don't know what else I'm going to do. I kept trying to leave for years. And the reason I'm telling you this is simply to say that, even going through medical school and everything, you learn all these things and they become your norm. You think, well, this is the way things are done, and this is it. But true science is something we all have in us, which is a basic human curiosity to experiment. Now, I experiment on myself, I experiment on my patients all the time. I don't call it an experiment, but I tell them very clearly that we're trying this as opposed to this, and this is the benefits and risks. We're trying this in addition to this.
This is a pretty good idea. Let's go to the education.
Maybe, but we don't have a random experiment. No, and obviously it comes with responsibility and explanation and collaborative approach.
Control the movements of your patients.
For sure, and follow-up, which is hugely important, right? And we're not talking about treating a heart attack with eating oranges. We're talking about things that are reasonable, things that are preventative. They're less sexy, right? They're not the same as, I used to work in emergency for years, and surgery, there's all sorts of very, very exciting things. But the actual number of patients that you can, whose lives you can improve through prevention and ongoing education, I guess, is vastly more than the few that end up on the operating table by comparison. But the only thing I want to mention that is exactly this to develop a passion for experimenting in the positive sense, and how I think that's where medicine needs to go back to. It's much more, yes, there's a lot of anecdotes, but there's so much more that can be learned. Because you're learning about yourself, right? You do something and you see the results, as opposed to, well, here's a randomized controlled study and we're treating X amount of patients and we know that 30% are going to do well. Well, great, that's fine for the 30%. We don't know who those 30% are going to be. What about everybody else?
Absolutely. And if I came to you with a condition that was difficult to treat or didn't have a standard treatment, and you said, look, John, my intuition tells me this is going to help you to some degree, then that's worth a lot, because as we go through life and you see lots and lots of patients and teach lots and lots of students, you do develop a certain intuition really for disease. And it's not, what I'm saying is much more than guesswork.
Sure, but the guesswork also involves the patient himself, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's the disease and then there's the person. And that's the part which needs to be matched. You can't just say, I get patients all the time who, what can I do for this? Okay, you can do this, but many of them won't do it. And then the other type of person or another specific person will do it. And they'll be engaged and they'll be involved and they want to, and it's about working with people, sparking their curiosity, sparking their motivation to actually benefit from something.
Iran thought the U.S. was finished and that they could retake Hormuz. Listen to this.
Last month you said Iranian leaders were very rational people, nice people to deal with, strong people, smart people. Today you said they were sick people and being led by sick people. What changed and do you think
You have to know. Well, I've said that about Iran. Now, when you say rational, I think they're much more rational than level 1, level 2, level 1.
Feeling your tooth sensitivity isn't severe enough to deal with? What if I told you Sensodyne has a fast and simple remedy? New Sensodyne Clinical Repair starts to repair sensitive areas of teeth after 60 seconds. I'm so excited to introduce this new product to patients. New Sensodyne Clinical Repair is absolutely amazing.
And I'm not sure I want to make a deal with them. We can play games, but I'm not sure I want to make a deal. Let's just finish the job.
But Trump said something very interesting after the recent Dallas doing hot exercise. He says they're leaving him out again, but he's not picking up the phone. And he also said they're coming after him personally.
Were you aware of any credible threat by Iran against her
I'm number one on their list before you. But if I go, you go. Right?
But was there
So
specific
perhaps someday you want to change professions. What do you have, Daniel?
Tobacco smoke and paralyze the city overnight.
We just hit them very hard. And I say we hit them 20 to 1. Every time they hit us, we're going to hit them 20.
Alternative
And we did it last night. They did a little something today, but it was really retribution for last night. They hit actually 3 bucks, not 2.
with analysis now as well, as long as
And when they hit, we hit back much harder.
And this is the part that has everybody totally confused, because a couple of weeks ago, Iran was given a deal that was so awful, the United States never should have agreed to it, that Trump was a fool for offering it to him, and this was just going to empower them and embolden them. And what did they do with that deal? They rejected it. Their actions today show they don't want that deal. There is nothing that you could give this regime to get them to stop going after ships in the Strait of Hormuz, their neighboring countries that have nothing to do with this conflict. The entire deal that everybody said was bad for America was actually put out there to expose who we're actually dealing with.
Full-scale military conflict, sir?
I don't know. We'd win it very quick. It's another way of doing it. There are many ways we could win. But we've already won militarily. They have very little. They have very little left. And they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago, they want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making the deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal. That's
Wow.
If they want to make a deal, why do you think they attacked commercial vessels?
Good question.
because it's not a crazy, to be honest. Yes,
Wow.
Conditions of work.
They're a little bit out of control, but they want to make a deal.
Whatever it be.
Badly.
If you want to.
So now, the same president that the world thought had been tricked and had been played by Iran, and that certain Republicans in the United States were saying, oh, they've got the best of Trump, he doesn't know what he's doing, he says he's a great negotiator, doesn't know anything. Well, now he says you can't make a deal with Iran, and we're supposed to believe that he didn't have any idea this was going to be the conclusion of this operation. At the same time, some people think the U.S. has been totally defeated and has lost. Listen to this.
A very tall gentleman who's very insecure. He doesn't want to ask the question. He's a handsome guy, but he's very insecure.
I've got to do that. It's a kind of coping mechanism.
Iran war seems to be a strategic dead end for you. Why are you apparently unable to end the Iran war?
So I think we're doing just the opposite. The Iran war has been a tremendous military success. And, I can only answer the question by saying they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. I think it's been, I was there for one reason, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I call it, we denuclearized Iran, and that's happened. They will never have a nuclear weapon. That stuff is so far down under a mountain, it's a granite mountain that collapsed on top of it. Take months to get it out. I think it's a tremendous success, Iran. And you see the oil prices are lower than they were when I started. And people like to say that, but look, they have no military left. Their air force is gone. As I said, their ships are gone. 159 ships are gone. They're at the bottom of the sea. Their radar is gone. Everything's gone. So when you say not a success, it's a tremendous success. And the fake news likes to say how well they're doing. They're doing terribly. They have 350% inflation. When the war started, they had like 6%, 5%. They have, they want to make a deal, but they don't know how to make a deal, and then they go around shooting ships at night. I don't like that. They're dealing with very fine people. They're dealing with Steve Woodcock. They're dealing with Jared Kushner and J.D. Vance, and they're dealing with Marco and Scott. They're dealing with great people, but I don't know. I think they're a little loco, they're a little crazy. Don't forget what we did should have been done 47 years ago. It could have been done any time within 40 years. This is going on for, they were the bully of the Middle East. So they're a much different country. Now, in one day, all of their
So the idea that this is a strategic dead end for Trump can only exist if you're looking at the presence of U.S. military assets in the Middle East and thinking to yourself that there's something weird going on here. But when Trump says that this is a strategic success, well, I'll tell you what he's talking about. The prediction for oil was $200-300 a barrel. It hasn't hit that much. Why? Well, here you go. OPEC is no longer relevant in a changing energy world. How is the energy world changing? Well, here you go. Venezuela is now producing oil and selling it on the open market. The United States is a big exporter of oil now. Ships are coming here to our hemisphere to get things they used to get from the Middle East, and the members of OPEC, they're getting their own oil out around the Strait of Hormuz. They're starting to do their own things. Every man is now for himself as far as oil-producing countries go, and that is a good thing for global energy prices. That's the best thing for global energy prices. So while you have energy prices dropping, and you have the U.S. and Venezuela and Guyana and our hemisphere becoming a major hub for oil exports, and you have Iran not being able to threaten the free world or control the Strait of Hormuz, which they think is some sort of asset for their country, you have a strategic success that totally eclipses the thinking of people who look at the U.S. and look at Trump and only see failure.
The world is taking you at your word, sir, that the MOU is over, that the ceasefire is over. What happens next, sir? Are we on the cusp of a full-scale return?
Well, I'll tell you what happens next. We're never going to see Iran have a nuclear weapon because that's much more important than the numbers you're talking about. The prices of oil are dropping like a rock. Now they'll be up a little bit, and this will end very quickly. We have an oil glut right now because we got all those boats out of the Strait, and it's going to drop. And I've predicted everything. I've been right about everything, and I have been for a long time.
Oh, they don't want to hear that.
Now, I have to make sure of one thing, that we don't have lunatics having control over nuclear weapons. So we have that now. There's no way they have a nuclear weapon. We have cameras, as an example, on the site that does beautiful B2s at 1 o'clock in the morning 10 months ago, blew up. They blew it up. We have cameras that's called Space Force. They're in space. But we have cameras that can read the badge of the person going over to a site with shovels. Well, shovels won't get you there.
St. John's sheriff deputies hopped back in their cars
machinery in the world probably won't get you there if you want to know the truth.
Everyone laughed at Trump when he started the Space Force. Oh, a Space Force. We don't need a Space Force. Yeah, actually we do. Because we need to know what's going on. And now that Space Force is keeping an eye on the nuclear material that Iran might want to try and get out of the ground. We can see exactly what's going on over there. They have no control over their airspace. We can see them from space. They've lost control over the Strait of Hormuz. They can claim they've got control over it. They can threaten ships that are in it, but they're not having any effect over global energy prices. Global energy prices are dropping. No matter what they do, they have zero leverage, and now we're watching them. Does that sound like a strategic failure?
Parenting these days is overwhelming. Hey, do either of you know my son? He forgot his lunch. Really? Teenagers. Kids, career, former co-stars who text all the time. Ty, we are literally sitting next to each other.
Julie and I are both real-life parents of teens, so yeah, I do reach out now and then.
Every day?
Maybe.
Alexandria's pickup withstood the attempted
Really important ones.
She
Like,
continued down
what
the
is
highway,
aura
hell-bent
and
on
do I
losing
have
the
it?
cops. At this point,
Or,
the pursuing officers
why does my
knew
daughter
that the
keep
only
calling
way
me
they would
brother?
ever get her off
But when
the
Ty
road
texted
was by
me, and I
force.
quote, "Is meningitis a city in Greece?" I thought this was something we should take seriously because honestly, I wasn't 100% sure what meningitis was either.
See?
But I think it's something teens can be vaccinated for.
Oh, well, if there's vaccines for it, I know my kids are vaccinated. I'm certain. I'm fairly certain. I think they are. I'm going to text my real wife.
So I called my friend Dr. Rebecca Hall. She offered to jump on a call with me and Ty.
Look, it's a raccoon filter.
But I thought some of us might learn more from a hands-on approach. So Dr. Hall offered to take us on a meningitis educational tour.
We're going to Greece.
surprisingly, they said no.
So instead, we hired a teen actor to be our kid for the day.
My name is Sam.
Not today, is it?
So, meningococcal disease, known as meningitis, is an uncommon but serious illness that can cause permanent complications or even death, sometimes within 24 hours. Among teens and young adults, 16 to 23-year-olds have the highest rates of meningococcal disease.
Because they're always on their phones?
No.
Sure.
Yes. Frequent phone use is not a risk factor for meningitis.
Okay, well, good to know. Get off your phone.
While searching the suspect's
The bacteria that
police
causes
found a
meningitis can be spread through
handgun,
saliva
along with
and
drug
respiratory
paraphernalia, live
secretions.
ammunition, and several spent shell casings. She was also
Living in
found
close
to be
quarters
under
like
the
dorms,
influence at
shared
the time,
apartments, and
resulting in a
military
charge for
housing can put
DUI
teens
with
and young
property
adults at an
damage.
increased
That
risk for
was on
sharing the
top of
bacteria
other
that can cause
charges for
meningitis.
possession,
And
reckless
if you get it,
driving,
it can be
and
very
felony
serious.
fleeing.
Is
Not
that-
to mention
Obviously, it's a
everything
new
else
roommate.
she was already wanted for.
It's
According to
worse.
the FHP, the driver
Wait,
of the
you're
black
leaving here?
SUV she struck
This is
was
my friend
unharmed.
John.
While meningitis
However,
is
the
rare,
footage stirred
it is
some
real. I
controversy
contracted it when I was a
online,
sophomore
with
in
people
college,
voicing
but
their
started as
frustration,
flu-like
calling
symptoms
the
quickly
FHP
progressed. I
out
was
of
rushed to the
control.
ER unconscious
The
and
dashcam
placed in a
footage
medically
clearly
induced
shows the
coma.
officer
When I woke
using
up
a pit
8 days
maneuver to
later,
force the
I was left
suspect
with
into
permanent
the black
visual
SUV.
impairment
In
and
his
neurological
defense,
damage.
he may have
Wow,
assumed
you
that
have
the
been
driver
through
would
so
keep
much.
going.
Yeah,
Instead,
and the upside
they hit their
is that now I can
brakes,
share my
slowing
story
the vehicle
and
right
empower
when
parents
Trooper
with the
Musil
information they
went
need
for the
to ask the
pit.
right questions.
Making good out of bad. That's exactly the kind of thing I try to teach this guy.
Just met 2 hours ago.
Play on, kid. The dorm tour was just the beginning. It turns out teens are doing all sorts of risky things like kissing,
On
sharing
January 7th
food,
of
drinks,
2026,
utensils,
police in
and
Jackson County, Ohio, attempted to
teens
stop
do
a red
when they're
four-door
being
Cadillac
teens.
sedan
You know what
with
that all
fake
sounds like
tags
to me?
that had already run from the cops
sounds like
twice
a-
that week. As they say, third
Fake
time's the
kid got
charm.
us sent to a party.
That girl's checking you out. I could be your wingman.
What's a wingman?
Where did we get this kid?
As you can see, there's all sorts of behaviors going on at a party like this that risk spreading the bacteria that can cause meningitis. Sharing food, drinks, faces. Exactly. Oh, kid, you better be careful. Where did he go?
Oh, he's making friends. I'm so proud of him.
He's growing up so fast. No sharing cups, mister? Or faces?
Yeah, we partied pretty hard.
We stayed for 10 minutes.
Which is good because we have one more stop on our meningitinerary.
Nice.
Jim, but this is where healthy people hang out.
That's true, but even though it's an uncommon disease, healthy teens can be at risk for contracting meningitis too.
I actually belong to this place.
Oh, then you probably know Jamie. She works out here all the time. I don't think I've seen you here before.
Didn't say I come here. I said I belong.
Jamie is another disease survivor, and she's also a gold medalist.
Cycling?
Adaptive cycling. 1 out of 5 meningitis survivors will have long-term consequences. They have brain damage, hearing loss, and in my case, limb amputations.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm one of the lucky ones. And despite medical treatment, about 10 to 15% of people that get meningitis don't survive.
Am I vaccinated?
I don't know. I'm not your real mom. Yeah, and that's the thing. Parents may not even know if their teens are vaccinated, or they assume they already are.
Assuming everything's okay was kind of my entire parenting strategy. The whole tour was certainly eye-opening.
And even better, Jamie introduced us to her mom, Patsy, who brought us here. The most important place on the tour. That's right. This is where we can take education and turn it into action. Though there's no guarantee vaccination will protect everyone, parents can talk to their teen's doctor about the vaccines available to help protect against meningitis.
Oh, I got a text from my real wife.
Then take it. Trust me.
She says that she says she's not sure if our girls have been vaccinated against meningitis either.
Exactly. And there are different types of meningitis vaccines. Even if your teen was vaccinated against meningitis groups A, C, W, and Y in the past, they could be missing vaccination to help protect against meningitis B. Start the conversation with your teen's doctor to understand if they're missing any vaccinations, including follow-up doses recommended to complete the series.
As a mom, I was always on top of my kids' health. Then I got the call that every parent hopes they never receive. Jamie and I share our story so that other parents will have the knowledge that I wish I had back then.
Well, now that we know what we didn't know that we now know, we are going to take action. Because
Our kids are everything to us.
That's right. All we want is to give these annoying creatures as much love as we can.
I know I don't always say it, but it really means a lot that you guys take the time to educate yourselves about meningitis. I know you have a lot to worry about.
As of this writing, Ohio police have not released much else about the suspect or his charges. Since he was driving with fake plates, there's a decent chance that his red caddy was actually stolen. And if that's true, Ohio officers might be keeping his personal information close to the chest while they investigate a larger
And to learn more, visit asktobesure.com.
FHP Trooper Ellerby was on patrol in Gadsden County, Florida, when he spotted a white GMC traveling south on US 27 with illegally tinted windows. He flipped on his emergency equipment and followed the GMC for several blocks until it finally stopped at a gas station parking lot.
At Sophia Learning, we have a solution. Sophia offers online college-level courses that are designed to transfer for credit, helping thousands of people graduate. Use Sophia and get ahead.
That's okay, man. Yeah, that's fine. Y'all stay around here? Okay. Where y'all coming from? Okay. Sounds good, man.
The driver identified himself as Richard Perryman, and his female passenger said her name was Chiquia McRae. They both seemed nervous, and Trooper Ellerby could tell they had something to hide. When backup arrived, he asked them both to step out of the vehicle so his K-9 unit could perform a routine sniff.
Hey man, can you help back out here and talk to her for a second? Come on, man. Come on. Come talk to me.
Anybody? Who would call that a strategic failure?
It's way, way below. But we're watching that, and if anybody goes there, they get blown up. So nobody's going to touch that. Eventually, we'll take it. But what we do have is we have that. That's gone. If we wouldn't have had that, they would have had a nuclear weapon.
Right.
And they would have wiped out Israel. If I weren't president, Israel wouldn't exist. Now, we did it 2 times. When the JCPOA, the Obama deal, when that was originally conceived, everything went to Iran. 1.7 billion in cash, hundreds of billions of dollars. They thought they could buy peace with these people. You can't do that. So,
and this is how Trump's deal with Iran was different, but also good enough that it totally exposed what their leaders were up to and why they don't want to make a deal. You see, the Obama deal with Iran, it gave them everything, and then it expected that something would happen, that they would do something, which of course they never did, or else we wouldn't be where we're at today. But Trump's deal, what did it give them? It gave them a piece of paper, which was as worthless as the piece of paper Neville Chamberlain held up in 1936, because Iran's signature was on that paper too. And they didn't abide by anything that was in the agreement. But you know what? It didn't matter. That's what's so crazy, is while this deal was out there, everyone's saying, how can we do this? They're not going to abide by anything. Of course, everyone knew that. That was the whole purpose of this memorandum of understanding, which is now over. But now the question is, why is Iran still going so hard after the Strait of Hormuz? Why is this something that they just cannot let go of? Why is it something that they want to claim total control over, and why they will not even agree to that in things like the Memorandum of Understanding?
You know, for our audience to understand, when Iran looks at the Straits of Hormuz, they really see that as a strategic asset, and controlling that is equivalent in their minds to having nuclear weapons.
Wow.
And I'm not over exaggerating this. And the reality is, why is that? Because it gives them significant strategic influence in the region. Geopolitical blackmail, in a sense. It gives them leverage to bend the nations in the region to their will if they're controlling the flow of oil out of the Gulf. That's the reality of it. Their strategic objectives from the outset have been what? One, dominate and control the Middle East. Two, control the distribution of oil out of the Gulf, destroy Israel, drive the United States out. So right from the initial objectives for 47 years, the control of distribution of oil has always been our strategic objective. And that is why we're witnessing a modified battle for the Straits of Hormuz here.
Well, now the question is, why is it that Iran didn't try to take over the Strait of Hormuz in the past? Well, they wanted to, but if you know anything about world history, they haven't been able to until something very important happened in the 1980s. They were at war with Iraq, and Iran was in the weaker strategic position with the weaker Air Force. They did have a strong position along the Strait of Hormuz to threaten tankers, but their ability to totally control the area was disputed. They did not have that ability. Then in the 1990s, we had Operation Desert Storm, and an international coalition took charge over the Middle East and stopped a dictator from taking control over Kuwait's oil and from being an aggressor in the area, which sent a message to the regimes in that area that, hey, if you try this, you can be next. But then what happened? Oh, we had the Obama-Iran deal. We had the thing that empowered Iran to become the Iran that almost had a nuclear weapon. They needed to be empowered. They needed to build up. Somebody running America helped them do that. That person's successor in 2020 continued that. And that got them to a point where they thought they might be strong enough to someday exert influence over the Strait of Hormuz, which is why right now they're trying desperately to exert any influence they can. They have been waiting for this for a very long time. They think this is their last chance to do it, and they hope that they can do it and make it to the midterm elections when hopefully Trump is finished.
And they are not going to give in to this, in my judgment, and it will likely lead to return to major combat operations because it means that much to them. And I think the reason why the MOU had this ambiguity in it that we all looked at and said, what that doesn't make any sense. Remember, the straits would be open immediately, we would release the blockade. But then in the written description of it, in 60 days, Iran and Oman can begin discussions about administration and services with the Straits.
Wow.
And that smacked of what? That smacked of giving them some kind of control. It didn't make any sense.
Well, it did once you realized that this deal that was going to embolden Iran and give them control over the Strait of Hormuz wasn't even good enough for them. They didn't even want that, and that was the deal that they signed with President Trump and then broke for some reason. So that shows you what's really going on here. And the reason for that is because they don't want any conditions over their ability to threaten the world economy. They don't want any conditions over their ability to exert their power and influence. And anything they've signed with anybody represents a condition that represents leverage that somebody else might have over them, some agreement that they're supposed to abide by. That's why there can't be no deal, as President Trump has said. He says he doesn't think he can even make one.
I think the Iranians insisted on that kind of language in there, or there wasn't going to be a deal.
And there still wasn't.
Facts of that, but I'm speculating here. But it just shows you how important this is. That was actually, that ambiguity is in there, and in a sense gives them some leverage here to what they're doing, except for firing on ships. Once they fired on ships, that obviously broke the ceasefire and ended President Trump and the action he's taken. He is not going to put up with this. And at the same time, we're going to continue to move ships through the straits, which we are doing right as we speak. And that is a form of distribution of oil that's continuing. It's likely to be some slowdown because of the hostilities to a certain degree. But this is a strategic asset, and the Iranians, I'm convinced, will dig in their heels over this.
And the reason they are is because this entire time the U.S. has been getting ships out through the Strait of Hormuz. The blockade that we have there and Iran's lack of control and lack of ability to exert any influence over this area has allowed the U.S. Navy to get boats out. And between that and the rewiring of the global energy landscape has essentially made this entire part of the world irrelevant. So Iran is fighting over something that is becoming more and more worthless every single day. And by not signing a deal, they're essentially dooming their ability to even be a regime because the world is not going to sit around. The world is reorientating itself around the reality that the Strait of Hormuz is not a safe place to get your energy. And energy prices, like Trump said, are lower than before this conflict started. They're back down to where they were. We will see some fluctuations, but they're dropping. And how are they dropping if the one place everybody gets their oil from has been a strategic disaster for the U.S. and for the entire world? I mean, that was the message that the fake news wanted to hit the president with at this NATO summit, but it's not happening. Oil prices are where they're supposed to be. They're headed in the right direction. Ships are headed in the right direction. They're headed to Venezuela. They're headed to the United States. OPEC has disintegrated. Those countries are now functioning in their own best interest, not part of an oil cartel anymore. This is a great thing for energy prices. This is a great thing for freedom, and this is a great thing for the safety of countries that were once threatened by a regime that was getting rich off its strategic ability to blackmail the rest of us. What do you think about that? I'll see you in the next video.
That direction, because she suddenly decided to leave the pavement and test her stolen truck's off-road capabilities.
The confidence in Finn comes from the data that we're seeing. When you look at the numbers, like, you can't really deny what's happening. It allows us to use our resources more efficiently, especially during big surges where our agents are now able to get to those high-volume customers and create that curated experience for the customers that we've created.
Oh, I said a fruit juice. I need a fruit juice. And very,
In 2010, Zane Ormsby, that's his name, he was 20 years old, he stabbed 3 people to death, and this is his interrogation. Now, if you are a true crime and interrogation nerd, you're going to absolutely love this. And if you're not a true crime nerd or an interrogation nerd, then you're going to become one.
ASP Trooper Jacob Price raced to the area while Trooper Linkus tried to coax the driver out of the truck. Unfortunately, she wouldn't budge. In her mind, there's still room left to run.
Open the door right now. Open the door.
oh my God. Why are you doing that?
We're taking back off.
I know. Yeah, of course. I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure because you've seen many never got shot and how to handle it. Maybe they get so paranoid to completely stay out of trouble and keeping a clean record because they see what they do to someone that has anything on the record. That's probably why they're so scared about keeping a clean record. It's so sad. I think it's so sad. The soul development, the human psyche, and getting older and trying to, comprehend and accept a lot of things. And when we know.
Officers hustled down the hill and arrested the female driver off camera. She was later identified as 30-year-old Courtney Damon. As for her passenger, police in Polk County said that the female had bailed out before the state police got involved. It's unclear if she was ever captured. In the end, Courtney was charged with felony fleeing, driving on a suspended license, reckless driving, and speeding 15 miles per hour over the limit. Police also learned that she had a felony warrant for a recent probation violation. ASP Trooper Ronald Grace was on patrol in Conway, Arkansas, when a biker raced by him at well over 100 miles per hour. He was gone in the blink of an eye, forcing Trooper Grace to push 150 miles per hour to catch up. In a battle of acceleration and maneuverability, the biker will always win. In hindsight, he should have stayed on the highway and lost Trooper Grace in traffic. Instead, he decided to take an upcoming exit onto the main roads of Faulkner County. It's unclear what the biker was trying to do. He got off the highway and right back on, only this time he was heading back the way he'd come. The biker stayed down in obvious pain. It didn't take a medical expert to diagnose him with a severe case of road rash after crashing at 120 miles per hour. We never learned the biker's name or what he was charged with. Hopefully, several days, if not weeks, of excruciating pain taught him a valuable lesson. It was May 9th of 2025. Sheriff's deputies in Fond du Lac County, Wisconsin were on patrol when they got word of a pursuit in progress. Several local cops were after a wanted man in a white four-door with tinted windows. He had just fled the scene of a traffic stop and showed no signs of slowing down as he exited the highway. That's where sheriff's deputies spotted him and took the lead position on the chase.
I got you, Pioneer.